Good morning. So I woke up this morning. Of course, I keep waking up earlier than my alarm. And all I kept hearing was communication is key. Communication is key. And I kept thinking, I do communicate. And then had to compare my last 2 days at work. Like the first day I worked with the babies, the infants. Yesterday was 3-year-olds. Woo! Talk about tornadoes and hurricanes. They're very different than babies, right? Because babies don't talk back. Babies don't just, no, no, no. They don't test your patience as much. With babies, you need more endurance, whereas with toddlers, you need more patience. So, as I was hearing communication is key, and I kept thinking, I do communicate, I had to tell myself I don't necessarily communicate the way that I think I do, and I think this applies to a lot of us because we're in a world where this is how we communicate, the technology that we use. And it's totally different. I've heard a lot of people say it the same as myself. I would rather see you face to face than text you or talk to you on the phone. Because when it comes to interpersonal communication, we can look at each other's facial expressions. We can kind of feel the energy around us. We can look at body language. We can hear the tone of the person, kind of gauge the attitude, let's say. So it's more so that one-on-one allows us to kind of adjust the way that we're speaking to one another to make sure that we're not, let's say, igniting a bomb. But it made me realize, even with my daughter and I last night, we ended up having like an explosive interaction. And I think a lot of it has to do with stress, for one, on both of our sides. But she's very much like me. She keeps things to herself. And it's funny because I had just told somebody this, that, I was taught to kind of keep things inside and just keep swallowing it down until I'm going to explode, essentially. And then when I explode, just kind of go away. And I've been known to kind of be that fire starter, let's say, in relationships, is what I'm starting to understand more and more. That when things get tough, it's easier for me to just set fire to it and walk away. And by that I mean, engage in an argument, don't apologize, and just say whatever, their loss. Maybe cry about it, maybe don't. But I've realized myself that I was raised in an unhealthy way of communicating. So deep breath for myself, because big understanding. And it's hard when you start understanding little bits and pieces about yourself, but it's essential to understand these things so we can heal and grow from these things. And like I said before, I share these things in hopes that if you're going through something similar, then you realize you're not alone, and then maybe you get a new perspective on how to address the situation you're going through. But when we communicate with people on let's say a shallow level, we're more acquaintances than partners or family, living under a roof, it's easier to kind of trick people, let's say, into not allowing them to see us. And that's not actually even trying to trick them, it's just concealing who we are to protect ourselves. So if you really want to start having those closer relationships that are more meaningful, less toxic, those long-term relationships, then you have to start asking yourself, how do I communicate? Because, like I said, when you're dealing with, and this is just from my experience of the last 2 days, but when you're dealing with something brand new compared to something that's been taught, I can't think of the word I'm looking for. They've been molded a little bit already. Their mindset is different. And then there's certain factors that play into each person. So it's difficult because the more people you're going to communicate with, the more communication styles you have to be able to entertain. And that's not always easy, especially when we are individuals that are basically one person in our mind. We don't have all these different versions of ourselves that this is how I talk to women, and this is how I talk to men, and this is how I talk to my preacher, and this is how I talk to a baby. And maybe people do adjust themselves in this manner. I guess that's why it's called wearing a mask and having a fake facade. But if we want to get real down to the nitty gritty and become just who we are, and that was the concept I was having in my head, actually, was we were all little bubbles, right? I'm in my own bubble, but as I'm trying to communicate with somebody else, their bubble starts pushing in on me. Well, the more chaotic they are, the more controlling they are, the more that they want to demand things their way, let's say, and that goes to that controlling nature. Well, their bubble begins to push on your bubble, and then as it takes over, you kind of lose who you are. And if you're willing, you allow them to basically hijack how you behave, how you talk, how you communicate, everything about you, because you don't want to upset them. And that comes down to being a people pleaser. But there's also the other aspect, the person that's just going to pop your bubble because they're toxic and they don't want you to have any sort of protection, so they can walk all over your boundaries and use you however they want. But like I said, I was just thinking about bubbles. Maybe because I'm working in a daycare, I don't know. But well, it's not called a daycare, it's a learning center. Same thing. But anyways, just food for thought. And a lot of times even I come on here just to work it out in my head. And then, like I said, share with you, because if it rings true in your life, then I'm glad I'm here to help you. And I do get inspiration from all of you that support me, and then the people I meet in the world. And, I'm always listening. I'm always trying to learn, because that's what I'm here for. Like, I've heard this termed that Earth is the biggest school. And I agree wholeheartedly, because this is where we get to feel emotions. This is where we get to do trial and error. This is where we get to be creative and learn different aspects about ourselves that we didn't know. And as well, we learn it about others. So for now, I'm just going to leave it on that note and finish getting ready for work. And I will catch up with everybody later. Peace, love, and light. Bye-bye.